Hi, we'd like to thank you for tuning into the World Boxing Review radio show. My name is Aaron Snowell, and they call me the Hall of Fame trainer of champions. We travel the world for past, present, and future stars. In coming to you live from Rochester, New York, a boxing promoter, and she just happens to be a woman, a Hall of Famer, to say the most, is Mercedes Vazquez Sims. Welcome into the World Boxing Review with a promoter, Pretty Girls Production. Welcome into the World Boxing Review radio show. How you doing up there?
Wonderful. Aaron, thanks so much for the invitation. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, it's always excited to have someone special like you, a Hall of Famer in your own right. You just happen to be a woman, but you're good at what you do. You know, for many aspiring women that want to get into promotion, there's women's boxing has come a long way from where it used to be. Tell our listening audience, how did you, number one, get into boxing?
Right. Well, I was born and raised. It's in your DNA. My family, they're all fight fans. I had an uncle who was a Golden Gloves fighter, Don Pedro Santiago, and so it's in your DNA. You know, I grew up in the era of Hector Camacho, where it was exciting. The Puerto Rican fighters were entering the scenes and they were making a splash. So I fell in love with the sport. Opportunities presented itself with rock solid management, and a gentleman by the name of Steve Nelson presented itself so that we could start putting on shows locally. Now, I was going to shows, I was traveling to New York, and I thought, what a wonderful opportunity to get to enter the sport by helping some Latino fighters with some of the preliminary things, making sure their medicals were done, making sure the paperwork was done, because there's a lot of behind the scenes that happens even before fighters get into the ring. So there's conversations of contracts, there's medical requirements, there's paperwork, there's quite a bit that happens. You know, we try to take care of that so that the fighter is focused on the bout at hand. So that's how I
Yes,
entered
yeah, you're
boxing.
absolutely right. But aren't you bilingual? Do you speak Spanish and English?
Oh, absolutely. Both of my parents are Puerto Ricans. But I'm born and raised in Rochester, but raised with Puerto Rican values. Boxing is in our DNA. Every year, I travel to Puerto Rico several times a year, and I make it a point of going to the shows, the local shows in Puerto Rico. Now here we are sitting outside, and I have a baby on a rocker that's sitting right there because, again, it's cultural in Puerto Rico.
Yes, it is. Boxing, all the great champions. You know, you spoke one great one, Hector Macho Camacho, but John Molina, who's going into the Rochester Boxing Hall of Fame up there when I go in November. You talk about Edwin Rosario, Carlos Sugar de Leon, you know,
Oh yeah,
the list is long.
the list
Time
goes
John
on
Luis,
and
who became
on.
the first heavyweight champion, but to be a woman, a
Yes.
promoter, Hispanic, it means a lot to a lot of people to see someone like yourself out there doing it. So, just explain being a woman promoter. There's not too many women that you see. What inspired you to promote boxing?
Sure. So I was introduced to the sport early on. I got to see the good, bad, and ugly of boxing and what happens behind the scenes, and sort of wanted to offer the boxing industry something different. I started promoting locally in Rochester, and again, we wanted to do things differently. Rochester, which is located in upstate New York, was no longer going to be a feeding ground for New York City elite fighters to fight at Madison Square Garden. I wanted to remove us being the B. I don't want to just have opponents. I wanted to provide a platform for fighters within my community, which is upstate New York, to have to, again to have a platform and to do things differently, to do things ethically, and you know that's when they say that, people sort of laugh because boxing, you know, they say, well, boxing is the dirtiest industry. Well, it's dirty because we've allowed it. So it's time to clean up the mess and focus on what's most important, which is the fighter's safety and well-being. You know, unfortunately, boxing is the only sport that doesn't have a pension plan. You know, all other sports, you know, what is it, football, basketball, they all have a pension program. Boxing is the only sport that doesn't. So it's important that we sort of kind of reel things in and do things differently. We don't have to continue doing things the way we have. That prompted me to start Pretty Girl Productions. Again, I just got sick and tired of getting calls from, you know, Top Rank or just all of them. I should have, you know, it's all of them are calling me to say, hey, do you have a 135er for a 4-rounder? And we knew what it was. There were going to be opponents. We don't have to do that. We have wonderful coaches in upstate New York. We have great fighters that just need an opportunity, and that's what we did.
Oh, absolutely. You got Dustin up there, who's a national champion. He's on the USA Olympic team. Algeria, who's a female boxer. She's doing well up there. They're getting all this kind of accolades. They're being awarded some award in November when I go into the Hall of Fame up there. Yes, you're absolutely right. There's great talent up there in Rochester area. And, you know, not only just the Rochester Boxing Hall of Fame, but right down the road, you got Canastota over there with Ed Brophy being the director. How much does that, you get to the exposure of the Hall of Fame and you get to meet great legends of the past? What does that mean to you being a Hall of Famer in your own right?
Well, again, it opens up some wonderful opportunities. You know, we have a great relationship with Ed Brophy at the International Hall of Fame. We also have the Buffalo Hall of Fame. So I call it the I-90 corridor of boxing. Again, typically anything outside of New York City, we're looked at as a pool for opponents. But here we are. Rochester has a world champion, and that's Charles the Natural Murray. And then he's
Yes.
got an believe it or not, everyone in his fights. It's incredible. We've got Chi Murray, we got Andrew Murray, we've got Levias Williams, Brandon Williams. We've got so many great fighters that are still up there. Again, they just need an opportunity, and I hope to give that to them again in December when we announce our fight card in December.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You got it. And you mentioned Hector Camacho. He's in the Rochester Boxing Hall of Fame too. So the Rochester community, not only do they support locals who has an extent history in boxing, but they expand their hand. Look, you have John Molina going in with me. He's Hispanic Puerto Rican, and you know he's being recognized in Rochester. You know, from Manny Stewart, on my viewpoint, Manny Stewart, African American, great trainer. He's going in. Angelo Dundee, who's getting the type of awards that I'm getting when I get inducted. But you know, y'all are doing such a great job. But in part of doing that great job up there, you ran for some type of legislature office too up there, didn't you?
Yes.
If I recall.
Yes, and again,
Talk a little bit about that, because a lot of times people, you know, put boxing. You ran for legislation. You're involved in government affairs. Talk some about that, man. Let the boxing world know about all of that.
So yeah, I entered into, you know, a different type of ring, which is the political ring.
The political ring. Okay. I can't hear you too well.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I said. Somebody called you. They caused emotion, but yeah, that political ring. Talk a little bit about that when you entered that.
Yep. So again, I went from one ring to another. I entered the political ring. Not having a political background, but certainly having grassroots experience. My mother was a civil rights activist that fought for the right to vote in this area. Back in the 60s, when she came from Puerto Rico to the United States, the Black and brown communities were discouraged from voting. And what they did, and when I say discouraged, it wasn't an intentional discouragement. It was very intentional. Some of the things that the Black and brown communities experienced, anywhere from putting roadblocks to just to apply for or just to register to vote. For instance, Latinos and African Americans are required to take a literacy test, literally a test, just to register to vote. So many people were intimidated by the process and opted not to vote. Legislation and laws were being passed, and we weren't at the seat. So my mother, again, coming from Puerto Rico, saying, wait a minute, this isn't fair. In Puerto Rico, the political landscape is incredibly busy. We're very active in the political scene. However, something happened as they were coming to the United States that changed that. My mother said, no, we should be, if anything, we should increase our level of civic activity, because our voices aren't represented and we don't have a seat at the table. That was in the late 60s, and my mother knew John Lewis. There was a civil rights movement that was happening in upstate New York, and my mother was part of that movement. We fast forward to the 2020 presidential election. My mother went into the poll, and then again, this is at the heart of COVID. This is right when COVID was happening. Many things were occurring in our community that we didn't understand. The poll sites were changing. They weren't really communicating with the constituents as to what was occurring. And my mother found that very troubling. And here it is, one of the locations that has the highest population of Latino voters was changed at the last minute. And people, if they go to their poll site and that poll site is available, typically they walk away. They're like, it's not worth my effort. But things like this occur just to discourage voters from voting. So my mother said, we've got to mobilize. Go rent a couple of vans. We're going to pick people. We're going to take them to the polls. Again, this is at the heart of COVID. So we found the location. It was actually smaller than the original location, which didn't make sense to us. And my mother said, no, this is intentional. When my mother entered the voting polls, she was told it's the wrong poll. Now, my mother, again, civil rights activist, she took an active role in voting. She was the commissioner. She served as a commissioner of deed. She was a translator. She took on so many roles throughout the years to help educate people about that right to vote. And my mother's right was compromised. And I'm sorry, because I get emotional about this. And this is
no. Hey, look, this is what inspires that community work that you have, Mercedes. Give the boxing fan, because that's what makes you a good promoter. You do tremendous community work too, and all of that. I guess the community work stemmed from all of that activity.
Right. So her right to vote, she went to vote. She finally was able to get her ballot. No, I'm sorry. She was given a ballot and she knew it was the wrong ballot, but her ballot was nowhere to be found. So she called her attorney. Her attorney said, put the name of the candidate you want to vote for. So she did, but my mother was just so angry. This is precisely what her fight was back in the 60s. And here it is, 2020. Everyone at the polls looked just like us, yet her right to vote was compromised and we couldn't understand what was going on. My mother was furious. She wrote the name of her candidate and she attempted to put it in the little machine, in the voter machine. She did it once. She did it twice. She did it a third time. Each time it was rejecting. That third time it accepted it with the word null. I can see the word null as if it happened yesterday. That null broke her heart. That means that ballot was taken and it wasn't accepted as a vote. My mother said, I fought so hard for this to never happen again. And here it is in the 2020 election. So I think I posted something on Facebook. And the gentleman that was our representative at the time, he inboxed me and he said, take that down, that post down. And me being a fighter promoter, I was like, who does he think he is? No one's going to tell me what to do. But then when I said, who is this man? I went to go see who he was. I said, let me go into Facebook. Let me look at his profile. Wait a minute. Lo and behold, he was our representative. How is it that you're asking
Wow.
me to put something down? I think the conversation should have been, how can I help you? I see something's
Right.
happened. Let's fix it. And he says, it doesn't matter. Your candidate isn't going to win. Well, that's besides the fact. But how do you know my candidate isn't going to win? Have you guys planned so far all this? I saw this and was immediately angered by it. And I saw the pain in my mother's eye who fought for our rights. I said, I think I told him, I'm running for your seat. Aaron, I didn't have a political background, but I have a civil rights.
So,
I have civil rights
in
activism.
2014, the bare knuckles boxing Hall of Fame that you got inducted on, I guess you said, put them up. I'm ready to go at it. And I see you ran for the seat.
Yes, I ran for a seat. Again, no political background, but what I had is a will to make a difference. Again, just like we did in boxing, we did it again in a political scope. My mother said, if you're going to run, we're going to run this as in a grassroots effort. No other candidate within this community has ever gone door to door. And we did just that. My mother was my campaign manager. My mother went out there with me. And I mean, I told everyone, our site looked like a military planning scene.
Standing up and fighting for freedom, justice, and equality. For those that are keep tuning in, this is Marcelis Vazquez Sims. She's a boxing promoter, among many other things. She's a Hall of Famer with Pretty Girl Promotions, and she's here talking about boxing and her political view. And somebody just tuned in named Kevin, who's texting us into the show, Kevin Walker. He says, let's go. And he puts a big heart around there for
Kevin
you,
is an incredible
Mercedes.
fighter. I mean, an incredible coach.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm sorry to interrupt you, but finish that getting, standing up and taking the bull by the horns, running for that seat up there.
All right. So again, my mother said we were going to do this. We're going to map this out, and she had every single quadrant of that district mapped out with date and a strategy. And she says, "This is how we're going to do it. We're not going to do all the fancy email stuff. This is a poor community, and we're going to give them what they need to hear and put words to action. None of this nonsense." See, what's happened in this community is no one ran for the seat, so it was almost given. The person never had an opponent, so you really didn't have to do much. And I'm not trying to discredit any done prior, but I certainly didn't see the work. You know what? You're there.
Yeah, it takes hard work. So people sit back and say, "Well, I can say and do what I want and don't have to worry about anything." And most people feel comfortable like that. They don't do much for the community that they're serving. It's when you're standing up for freedom, justice, and equality, and to be on the cutting edge to help people, you have to stay on the forefront of this battle of freedom, justice, and equality, and keep fighting wrongdoing. That's what civil rights is all about. It's all about the people. You got to give people what they want when they're crying and standing up for it. And that's what the fight is all about. But it all has to deal with that ballot box. In Rochester, New York, Frederick Douglass was born and raised in Rochester, New York. He has that museum up there, his house. He has a statue. But boy, did Frederick Douglass stand up for freedom, justice, and equality in his fight for freedom for the people. So I understand your plight in that, because you got some great pioneers that were on the forefront up there in Rochester, New York. And boy, you're on the cutting edge of what you're talking about. But you got something else coming up, maybe it may be your last promotion before you get into these other things. What is that? When do you plan on putting another show on up in Rochester?
We're thinking, I believe it's the 17th of December. It's a Thursday. We're still waiting for confirmation from the New York State Athletic Commission before we can push out a date. But we're thinking the second week in December, we're going to have what would be my final fight card under Pretty Girl Production. And the reason being is I did take on a state political seat. It's a committee seat, but I want to make sure that, if I'm going to impact policies at the state level, that I myself don't compromise things and become a conflict of interest. I like to do things clean. I like to do things on the up and up. And I can't say that I'm doing things unethically. I can't do that. So I've committed to doing my last show in December. And who's to say within 2 years we don't resume again. I do have partners with Pretty Girl Productions, so we'll see what happens in the future. But as of now, we're gonna have our last show in December, and my goal is to promote the local fighters. And also, I've reached out to Mayweather Promotions to see if we can have some of his fighters come down as well. We've had great relationships through Juan de Leon with many other promoters as well. Goto Promotions, I think I've seen many of his fighters in upstate New York, and they've had a presence in my card. In fact, most of the fighters that end up in my card end up fighting for a world title further down in their
world
career.
title fight.
So it's really exciting to be part of their career as they're developing and help them get to a main stage, and not as an opponent, but being on a prospect, a promising prospect. I'm excited about the future of boxing. I mean, tonight, there's so many fight cards happening tonight.
Tonight that was my next question. What do you feel about Canelo Alvarez and Balingo, a Puerto Rican versus Mexican? That's always a great matchup when you have these two ethnical groups fighting against each other. What do you feel about tonight's fight?
I like both of the fighters. Canelo he's got quite a history, quite a record. He's dynamic in the ring. Berlanga is up and coming. May the best man win.
Absolutely. It's going to be a great fight with Balingo.
Everyone wants to see that rivalry, right, between the Puerto Ricans and the Mexicans. So
yeah, it's a huge rivalry because both Mexicans and Puerto Ricans, the great boxing heritage that both of them bring to the table. It's not, a lot of Puerto Ricans that come to the table come with that fire and desire to represent their country, as well as Mexicans come with that great thing to represent their country, even though they're world champions. But it's that cultural experience that fires them up, and boy, that arena out there is going to be hopping and popping tonight. But also this afternoon, down here in Florida, Tito Ocasio, who you know very well, he's putting on a amateur show up there to raise money for his gym, John 316 in 17. So we wish him, as it's going on right now, and I know you send your best out to Tito.
Absolutely. Tito is such an incredible guy. And I know that you guys were both honored in a different Hall of Fame club. So congratulations to you both. And I look forward to seeing you here in Rochester. But it's important that the work that Tito does in Florida, the work that Kevin Walker does in upstate New York, that we continue to support their efforts. Without the support, boxing will die. And we own boxing, right? It's the sweet science. People say, oh, they've lost their luster to UFC. No, they're two different disciplines. But if we lose interest and we stop supporting our young people, that's where the sport dies. And I'll tell you what, I don't know what you're experiencing in your area, Aaron, but in upstate New York, we are having a major crisis with our young people.
Yes, we are all around the world.
Yes. So boxing is the only sport that I know that offers that level of discipline. It's self-control, self-confidence, self-awareness, and these are the attributes that our young people are lacking. I encourage parents to, if you think that you've lost control of your child, bring them into a boxing gym. I salute, again, coaches like Tito, like Kevin Walker, who love the sport so much, and they genuinely have the best interest for these young people. It's people like that that make a difference in young lives, and it can cause them to want to take interest in boxing. Some of these kids are our future world champions. We just have to cultivate them. We have to spend time with them and provide a platform too.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Dreams only come true if you believe that they do. You have to dream hard and work hard and make those dreams come and make them happening. Like for myself, um, trainers are the ones who help cultivate the talent when they're young. Like Justin's father up there in Rochester, he cultivated him to get him on that level from the
Sure.
road that which he came. But that's what you need. The same thing with Algeria in Charles Murray up there. He's putting uh, time and knowledge into those people that hopefully that they grow to their full potential on the top end where professional boxing is at, and boxing changes lives.
Mhm.
How do I know it changed mine? I was a young poor black boy in the projects in the ghetto, and if it wasn't for Muhammad Ali and great people like that, Don King giving me the opportunity, we came along with boxing and training, and it changed my life, just like it would change other people's lives who are downtrodden, and poor, and left out and kicked to the side. How many lives has boxing changed? But as when you reach a certain level, what you're talking about, you have to reach back and you have to give back. Knowledge is one of those things. You can take it to the ground or you can share it with people and watch the seed that God gives you. Plant those seeds in the young, watch them how it takes root, and watch how it grows, blooms, and blossoms all over. And that's what you're doing, Mercedes. And bless your heart for your continuous community service work.
Well, thank you. And again, if it doesn't come from the heart, then don't do it. As a boxing promoter, particularly doing club shows as I do it, you're not going to be a millionaire off of this. You may even break even if you're lucky.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you gave people opportunities to
That's
have
right.
a night and a day for entertainment. It keeps people off the street. It brings people together
Hmm.
that normally wouldn't been together. What makes boxing unique is that you can go to a fight. Here's a guy who's a millionaire. A guy sit beside him just, decided he wanted to get a good ticket. And he comes down the ringside. He's sitting next to a millionaire guys. Next thing they start talking and then they become friends. And that's the way boxing is.
That's right.
Or they say, wow, I want to do this after they see the electricity that boxing brings. Boxing brings a lot of electricity in the air. And that's the kind of shows that you put on Mercedes. You with your community work, you bring people in from all phases and walks of life, from doing this or doing that, and the atmosphere becomes electrifying. And that's what happens with a good promoter like yourself. But I want to hear this bare knuckle boxing. You got a person of the year award in 2014 for no gloves, bare knuckles, man. And congratulations on that. Talk a little bit about that bare knuckle boxing Hall of Fame that you got an award from.
Yes. So the folks, if you haven't traveled to the Bare Knuckle Boxing Hall of Fame, and that's downstate New York, they say Western New York, but they're almost close to Pennsylvania. It's quite a unique experience. It's a unique location, and you feel the art, the sweet science while you're out there. They honored women in boxing and actually in the sports. We had Melvina Latham, who was my commissioner at the time. She was the commissioner for the New York State Athletic Commission. It was Christy Martin, and we all know Christy Martin. No one left.
Yeah, the coal miner's
And
daughter.
Ms. Peak, who was the first Olympic trainer. So there was a ton of women that were honored. I believe there were, I say 10, there was about 6 of us that were honored that evening. And it was the first time that women had been honored in that facet. Back then, the International Hall of Fame pretty much just honored men. And
Right.
the Women's National Hall of Fame wasn't invented yet. And unfortunately, women have always been in the back seat when it comes to boxing, not really getting full recognition. Now, I know some promotion houses that, with the exception of the president, everyone else was female running the show, but you would never see them because they wouldn't get the spotlight. If you look at Top Rank, a good majority of their leadership is and operations are women. I think we have an attention to detail. I'm not saying that just because, but I think we have an attention to detail and we do things passionately.
Right,
Women,
that's right.
my commitment to the sport was, I didn't care if you're male or female, you're going to get paid the exact same amount. And that's called equity. It was the first time in boxing history where boxing, fighters, male or female, were going to get compensated, whether it be 4 round, 6 round, 8 round, 10 round, it didn't matter. You're going to get paid the same as your counterpart, your male counterpart. The commission,
yeah, that's equality. That's where economics is where equality should be at. And when you do things like that, it shows that the playing field is level for equality. And that's the big fight, is because what you said, like in the political arena, even women didn't have the right to vote when white men only could vote. And white women had to form their own little committees and parties until they fought and got their right to vote, as minorities got their right to vote. Uh, White women got the part. So there's been a great history of suppression of the vote and equal voting rights. And for the young people, this is important, to express your viewpoint, number one, in a kind, gentle, but a precise manner. In the ballot box helps that. So when people register to vote and get to the ballot box and express it by pushing who they feel and know the issues, know where each one stands with the issues. It's so many important. When you hear people say people lost their lives, look at Martin Luther King. He lost his life fighting for freedom, justice, and equality, standing up for the rights of the downtrodden, the poor, the ones left out, the ones kicked to the side. He took a bullet for standing up for workers down there in Memphis, that they were being oppressed for equal pay. And certain things like that, it's an ongoing fight because they changed the yardstick and the maneuvers of way and how they go about it. So, and that's what it happens with grassroots levels like you got, what you were saying, where you go out and find the issues, and then you try to get people to attach on these issues and fight for freedom, justice, and equality. And again, Mercedes, thank you so much, man. World Boxing Review loves what you're doing in that community of Rochester. So while we're on Rochester, let's go to the Rochester Boxing Hall of Fame. You've been inducted into the Rochester Boxing Hall of Fame. What year was that?
it was right after COVID. So it was
Okay.
years ago. I was
Okay.
surprised to receive that. They were bringing so many folks in for it. And being a woman in the sport, you don't get the recognition, you don't get the opportunities You are just, again, a person who's constantly fighting. But I would make it a point of having quality shows. I didn't spare expense when it came to providing an atmosphere that you'd see in Las Vegas. Our shows had the lights, the professional sound. We gave those fighters, New York City, what is it?
Lights, camera, action.
That's it.
Lights, camera, action.
Madison Square
Yeah.
Garden experience in Rochester. And I think if you talk to anyone who's been on one of my cars, they're like, all the way to the ring girls, they were top notch. Because again, because we're upstate New York and because our fighters, perhaps many of them aren't even signed to a management team, doesn't mean we don't give them the same experience and those same opportunities. Again, it's a platform to get you started. And if we can continue your career, it's wonderful. We've had wonderful fighters, Hector Camacho, we had Willie Monroe on our fight cards. We've had some big names in Rochester. We have to continue that momentum. I can continue it, but I need the community support. Those tickets have to be sold, those seats have to be filled, and fans have to come out and support these fighters. There's great fighters. Brandon Williams is back in the scenes, and I'm so proud of him. I'm happy for him. And at 130, 135 weight classes, it's very exciting right now. So I can't wait to see him get back in the ring. We've got some work to do to put this card together, but I'm confident we'll get it done, and it's going to be a great night of boxing in Rochester, New York.
Oh, absolutely. And, Mercedes, we're going to try to take this, Shakur Stevenson, he broke his hand. So it looks like he's being pulled off of that card that he was going to fight over in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So he injured his hand. So news is all the time fastly growing, when you're covering boxing. So we just like to, fill in from here to here, take something locally, then go nationally, then we go internationally with it. Coming up here in September, we have Anthony Joshua fighting the boys over in Wembley Stadium, and it looks like they may beat Tyson Fury's record for the largest crowd, but he's fighting for the IBF heavyweight championship belt that Tyson Fury and Usyk gave up the IBF belt in order not to fight the number one contender. So the number one and number two contender are fighting for that. So yeah, boxing's moving on. When you're talking about over 100-some thousand people in Wembley Stadium, boy, is that a lot of people. As a promoter, so it looks like they're well on the mark to doing that.
And I love the fact that things are happening in the Middle East, that it's picking up popularity in China, that it's doing such great things. And you said it earlier, boxing transcends all things. It's to me, the only sport that can bring communities together of all social class, can bring them in. So I'm really excited about what's happening. There's some really great prospects that are coming up. And again, Rochester has such wonderful talent. We've got rich history in Rochester, New York. So, Rochester, the best is yet to come. So I'm really excited about that.
Okay, in closing, Mercedes, boy, we've been talking a long time with this interview, boy. You're a great interview, Mercedes. In closing, what message you want to get out?
I guess my message would be to women. I've had such a long journey in this sport, but I'm very proud of the accomplishments that women has made in this community. The likes of Amanda Serrano, salute to Amanda Serrano for doing amazing things. I remember back when she was willing to take fights at no cost because they just wouldn't give her an opportunity. Now, often women in boxing have children and have families. They have to juggle multiple things. So when they're in the ring, when they're in the gym, they're 1,000% dedicated to this. That's why pay equity was so big for me, because women have come a long way. So I encourage women, if you're interested in boxing, inbox me. Would love for you to be part of this show at any rate, at any facet. boxing, the boxing industry just isn't getting in the ring. We have operation positions available. We have, screen time if you're great at social media. I mean, there's just so many different opportunities to work in the industry. But I think women offer such great value in boxing. And this is the time, I think this right now is the time for women in boxing. And I'm excited to be part of that movement.
Absolutely. Well, Mercedes, in closing, we want to thank you, Mercedes Vazquez Sims, a Hall of Famer, Pretty Girl Productions, for coming on the World Boxing Review today. And we'd like to thank our listening audience. Thank you for tuning in as we travel the world for past, present, and future stars. My name is Aaron Snowell. They call me the Hall of Fame trainer. Thank you for tuning in today's show.
Thank you.
All right.